You got to press down. There you go.
I hereby call to order the May 10th, 2024 public hearing of the City of Prescott Preservation Commission. The commissioners present are James McCarver, Richard Sprang, Diane Travis, Rob Johnson, and myself, Chair Michael Mirko. Our staff members present are Kaylee Nunez, our Historic Preservation Specialist, George Worley, our Planning Manager. We have Chelsea Walton, Community Development Director. Ms. Kentel, oh, there she is. That's our council liaison, Connie Kentelme. We do have our mayor here today, Phil Good, and our newly, how do I want to say, recording secretary. Oh, and we have Marianne Suttles just walked in the building. So I will have Marky make a statement for us today.
Good morning. Just as a reminder, and with decorum and respect in mind, city staff and the council kindly request that the public wait for their opportunity to speak until the public comment portion. We ask you to debate the proposal or presented item and not criticize staff or presenters. Any public outburst will hear the gavel from the mayor or the chair asking for decorum. If individuals continue to disrupt the meeting, they may be escorted out of the meeting by Prescott police officer. Further, members of the public are expected to present new information and ideas when addressing the commission. And if a speaker repeats previous comments, the chair may limit their comment time. If a speaker displays hostility toward any of the members, presenters, or staff, they will be gavelled and admonished. And if they continue to attack, the mayor or chair may request they be escorted. Finally, applause will be limited to recognition during the presentation and proclamation portions of the meeting and will not be permitted any other time during the discussions. Thank you.
All right, folks, this is an open public hearing and is being recorded by the city. The proceedings are being televised by representative of the public media, local cable and/or radio stations, and may be also rebroadcast. The number of commissioners are six of us. It'll take a 5 vote to pass a motion. Or I'm sorry, 4 vote.
4 vote.
Sorry. All parties wishing to be heard will be expected to state their names for the record. Please speak loudly, clearly, and close to the microphone. And keep in mind what our secretary just stated, no outbursts. This is going to be a nice, easy conducted meeting, please. And put all your electric devices on mute. Our agenda today was, of course, roll call. We have 3 items, 2 of which will be voted on. 1 is a discussion session only. Would you like to present, please?
Item 3A, HP 24008, approval of installation of 2 new wall signs, 1 awning sign, and refurbish existing blade sign for National Bank of Arizona, Historic Preservation District, Courthouse, Plaza, local and national districts, zoning, downtown business, property owner, Zion's Bank Corporation, DBA applicant, Yesco LLC, location APN 109-02020, 210 West Goodwin. Recommended action is to move to approve HP 24008 with stipulation that the proposed southeast corner blade sign be omitted.
At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Kaylee for her opinions.
Okay. Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Kaylee Nunez, Historic Preservation Specialist for the City of Prescott. So as Chairman Mirko explained today, we have 2 items on the regular agenda and 1 item for discussion only. So First item, HP 24-008, 210 West Goodwin Street. So the photo on the left is the building last year prior to the current remodeling. I think we all are aware of the Galloping Goose that's been there for decades. The photo on the right, I put a little box around the building location. That's probably from the late 1910s to early 1920s. So this building is a National Register contributor. It was a general store prior to the Great Fire of 1900. When it was rebuilt, it was basically a saloon and a liquor store for a while. In the late 1920s, it was heavily remodeled to a more Art Deco style and became an auto dealership and garage. So, of course, Galloping Goose has probably been there, was there from the late 1980s or early 90s till last year. Here's an aerial map showing it at the northwest corner of Montezuma and Goodwin Street. Okay, so the proposal is to install two wall-mounted signs, one on the eastern elevation, one on the southern. A new awning over the ATM on the eastern side. To reskin the blade sign on the southern side and add a company logo. This is for National Bank of Arizona. And then to install a small blade sign on the southeastern corner. So the signs are have vinyl lettering, acrylic facing, and will be illuminated. Here's some nighttime renderings. So I reviewed the proposal against Chapter 8, Courthouse, Plaza, National and Local Districts. So Chapter 8 in part states, use integral and natural colors compatible with the building and district. Lighting shall be by incandescent fixtures only. It's not supposed to say boy type, it's supposed to say box type of cabinet signs are not acceptable. Use of canvas or fabric awnings is encouraged at all locations in district, and one perpendicular sign per business activity is permitted. So, regarding the box sign stipulation, because there are existing box signs, they're essentially grandfathered in. So wouldn't be viewed the same as if they were proposing to install a new box sign. That would not be allowed. So the proposed signage, excluding the southeastern blade sign, will not adversely impact the historic status of the building nor the historic districts. And so that little blade sign, I think was like added 2 years ago without a permit. I believe it was advertising beef jerky, but yeah, it's not, we'd rather have that removed from the design. So recommended action, move to approve HP 24-008 with condition to remove southeastern blade sign. And we do have a representative for the sign company present, and she would like to make a request.
Good morning. My name is Kimberly Ewers. Last name is spelled E-U-E-R-S. I am the Government Relations Director for the Southwest Division of YESCO LLC. I had expected and learned last night that the attendance of our account executive for this job and also a representative from the National Bank would be here, but they will not be. They both were detained for other reasons. I was lucky enough to get to come visit your city.
You may have to speak closer.
And spend the weekend here enjoying all this wonderful history. I just very much appreciate it. I also appreciate this document that was prepared some time ago for the Courthouse Plaza Historic District. It is highly organized, highly detailed, and I enjoyed very much reading the history of this part of town. I have been asked to advocate in favor of the projecting sign on the southeast corner that formerly was not permitted apparently, and obviously with the existence of one projecting sign that's fairly historic to the building would not otherwise be allowed in this district. The reason being, National Bank of Arizona very much wanted to employ a projecting sign at this corner and also revise their branding standards in order to support that on the corner. That was by taking the logo off of their eastern elevation raceway sign in favor of having that projecting sign in the corner. I drove down there this morning and sort of kicked the tires on the building to get an idea of what would be important about a projecting sign at that location of the building. And it seems apparent to me that northbound traffic on Montezuma has the advantage of that southern elevation sign they can see. But southbound traffic on Montezuma will not be aware of this positioning of this bank unless there is something projecting that advises of its position. That is not readily available by wall signage. Basically, the bank disappears to southbound traffic without some projecting logo that says, here we are. The traffic that might be engendered by having a bank at this corner, a new bank, and the customers that might, location awareness is the real reason for this, not simply that they wanted to have an additional projecting sign. It's a real disadvantage to be on this corner and not have one, particularly when you have 4 different directions of traffic going and some of them being at a real disadvantage of where they might be wanting to stop. The alternative to that is if that is not possible, and it's understandable, I kind of thought it was a fait accompli when I came in here this morning because I hadn't heard that they wanted me to advocate for this. But they did suggest in the alternative that we be allowed to incorporate, if that corner projecting sign is rejected as a possibility, to reincorporate their logo up on the eastern elevation sign, which would create more sign area on that sign. But that is currently on the prints, and possibly it would have the the logo would have the same sign area as the southern logo wall sign. It would add another 10 square feet of sign area to that location, to that wall. It has 50.5 feet of elevation length. And the sign as it is now without any logo on it is 21 square feet. So this would increase the area of that sign to about 31 square feet, which is more than the 0.5 to 1 that is permissible. Nonetheless, if we work with the method of sign area calculation, how do we measure this sign in what geometric figures, and possibly we could create a double raceway that would reduce the area calculation of the sign and bring it within the requirements of the Courthouse District plan. That would also be something that the National Bank of Arizona would support if that is what ultimately is decided. I think that configuration, the double raceway, would look ill-advised on the eastern elevation because it's 50 feet wide and there's a lot of area that's going to be left blank. It would look like the sign band is not being absorbed. So with that said, thank you for hearing us out on it. We look forward to hearing what your response is on this, and I hope you all have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm open for any questions.
Anyone?
This is Jim McCarver. So the enlarged sign is just your feeling. This is new to me. So that would make that National Bank of Arizona sign considerably larger.
Yeah, it's new information to me. So Miss Ewers approached me this morning and said that, the representatives from the bank had requested, I guess, an additional logo in lieu of the small blade sign. So I just found that out too. So, it's up to the commission whether they'd like to approve that obviously within the parameters of our zoning code, our square footage allowance. It's just, yeah, the one sticking out on the southeast corner was, again, not permitted. And it's a bit distracting, and I get that might be favorable to attract attention, but it kind of sticks out in a bad way, in my opinion.
You got more?
The
I have a
sign,
question. If you were to keep that blade sign, I guess you're calling it, with your logo on the top, gosh, your lettering for the National Bank wouldn't be large at all, would it? Do you know?
Not on that elevation.
So it's kind of, yeah, I don't
Kaylee,
see
can
it.
we pull up the photo that you're discussing? Just
You know, I
which
had
one
a
it is?
limited amount of slides. It's in, well, I do have the full staff report that IT can pull up. It was all in the agenda packet. Yes, it doesn't have the full name. It has NBAZ on it.
I just wanted to clarify to make sure
Sure.
we're talking about the same sign.
Yes.
this is Jim McCarver again. So there was on the southeast corner, there was a vertical sign before.
Yes, it just
And
was
are
not
they
permitted.
just covering that over, or are they going to? Would they want to install an entirely new sign?
I don't know the answer to that. Not sure if it's been removed yet. Kimberly may be able to answer that.
Kim Ewers again. The sign still remains on that corner, but it would be removed and replaced. It's not a reskinning. It is a completely different sign.
I don't.
Kaylee? Yeah,
Yes.
I also noticed that on the east side, where the outdoor teller isn't the ATM area. There, the logo is there as well, right? So you can see that
Yes.
on the eastern side. Okay.
Yes, it's see the bottom right photo. Rendering, rather.
Any more?
I just have a question. Could we table this until we see
Yeah,
different
you
rendering for the
you
east side
you
sign?
could. Yes, you could make that decision as a commission. You'd have to work it into a motion, but yes.
Question, does this really need to be tabled? You don't think you've got enough information or the presentation on it that you want to hold it for another month?
I don't believe the bank's going to be opening the next month, but if we disallow that sign, they're going to have to come back with another version for us to vote on anyway, for the east sign that they want to change.
And again, wouldn't the vote sort of dictate that? If you don't table it and it gets voted on, maybe some of you want it tabled. But I'm trying to get to it. You want to wait for another month to make this decision.
Correct.
It's
So
Jim
we need
McCarver
a
again.
motion and a second.
I have a question about the lighting.
Yes.
So what was there previously? Was it compatible lighting or?
No, the Galloping Goose sign was incompatible, but it was put up prior to the district guidelines being established. So from what I remember, I think the entire background of the box cabinet was lit. So in this case, it's just the lettering, which is permissible and better than having a whole back panel lit up.
If they used appropriate lighting, would it look different in the evening?
Well, yes, you mean like incandescent fixtures? Yes. But, the way I evaluated this, again, is because there's a pre-existing box sign. I didn't necessarily mark it against them that they are doing this type of sign. It's actually an improvement.
And there are
on what
other,
was previously there.
there are other stores that have the box type lighting on the plaza.
Yeah, there are a few. Like I said, there was like a lot of them that went up in the 70s through 90s. So they're grandfathered in. Of course, if, a tenant wants to change it to fit the guidelines, we encourage that. But this is acceptable.
Diane Travis here. So I'd be willing to move to approve with the stipulation that the southeast corner blade be omitted, and then they can come back for the east side sign.
Yeah, in that case, we just moved to defer HP 24-008 to the June commission meeting. And we just, they probably work up a new design without that blade sign and with a logo on the east face being added. So we just do a motion to defer.
Okay, so Diane Travis, I move to defer HP 24-008 until next month.
To the, June commission, Preservation Commission.
Rick Sprain, second.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? So we have 5-1. It is deferred.
Okay. All right, next item, HP 24-009 at 120 North Montezuma. This is actually in the North Prescott National Register District. So picture on the left is the building currently. Picture on the right is from the inventory form that was done in the 90s. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a more historical photo of the building. There is a correction to the staff report. I had a GIS glitch. So in the staff report, I said the building is not a National Register contributor. It is. It was built in 1905. It was originally a church. Then retail spaces until the late 1950s. El Charro went in there, and I think anyone who's been here for a while remembers El Charro. They had a long legacy, 1959 to 2018. So it has been 2 other restaurants since El Charro closed. Here's an aerial map just north of the Gurley Montezuma intersection. The proposal is to install 2 new dark blue cantilever awnings above the entry door and ground level windows. So the right-hand awning will have a 20.4 square foot sign above it, projecting above Reading Parlor Donuts. So the awning will be metal, and then the lettering will be white and blue aluminum composite with white faux neon illumination of the lettering. So I reviewed the design against Chapter 8 guidelines. There has not been a chapter written for North Prescott yet, as it was added after the original master plan. Again, some Chapter 8 in part states use only integral natural colors, promote continued use of Courthouse Plaza Historic District as a commercial and business area. That includes North Prescott. That is a high foot. North Prescott District is a high foot traffic area as well. Use of canvas awnings encouraged. Signage should complement and not detract from the building and be used for identification only. And neon may be used for lettering. So going back to canvas awnings, these are metal, of course. However, there are several similar metal and rather solid awnings around the courthouse. The most prominent example I can think of is on the front of the Bashford building. So it is compatible. The proposed signage will not negatively impact the historic status of the building nor the integrity of the district. And recommended action, move to approve HP 24-009 as is.
I have a question, Chair
Yes.
Mike Mirko. Are they taking over both parts of the store?
Yes, I believe so. We have the architect Trinity Shelton here.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Morning. Trinity Shelton. I'm the architect helping out some friends with this remodel. Yes, they will be taking over both spaces. Because of the higher floor level of the space at the 118 location, which is right to the left of the 120, which is where the entry occurs, the spaces have, they have a code challenge with being rented out as separate spaces. So in order to comply with that, we are using both spaces, signing both spaces as one, and then one would just be considered an overflow because it doesn't meet the ADA codes that are required for ingress and egress. So on that note, yes, they will be both used as the same company, but with one sign over the main entrance of the structure.
So the left-hand side is not going to have any signage at
It
all?
will not have signage at this time. We may have some stickers and things like that in the windows once it's complete, but we want to draw people to the main entry of the structure. In fact, so one of the things that Kaylee mentioned was it was at one point a hotel. Its original use, it was called the Brinkmeyer Hotel. It was
I actually didn't mention that part, so
Yeah,
thank you
so
for
it was
bringing that
used-
up.
Yeah, in the 1900s, actually, it's been there since at least 1870. At which point it was added onto, I don't know. But if you go inside the structure, and I hope you all do, once this little donut shop opens, there's a wall that separates those two spaces, the 118 from the 120, and that wall still has an advertisement from sometime in the 1870s for Levi's riveted overalls painted on the brick. It's fantastic, and you can't go into the crawl space below, but it extends all the way to the crawl space and below in the lower space. The great thing about it is when it was Brinkmeyer's Hotel, initially it did burn in the 1900 fire. It was rebuilt in 1901. And at some point in there, the owners decided to build a bakery into the lower story. So it was a hotel over a bakery, and it will once again be a hotel space at some point, we hope, over a bakery. The hotel upstairs is still existing. It does need some TLC if it were ever to be reopened, but it's fascinating. We love it.
They're planning on reopening the hotel?
We have no idea at this point. It would take a ton of work to make that work, but
There is no application.
there
for
is
that.
absolutely no current plan on the horizon. But there are still rooms upstairs from that time at which it was used as a hotel.
Another question here?
That's Jim McCarver. So why did you decide to put a metal awning instead of the usual recommended canvas awning? Why was that?
That's a great question. It wasn't my dream and choice. It wasn't my plan. Essentially because, so the company Parlor Donuts, it is a franchise, and they have a distinct style that they like to kind of emulate. It's vintage in a lot of ways, but it also has a little bit more new elements to it. The photo from the Oceanside location, I believe, is the one that shows the white awning surrounding the entry with the Parlor Donuts sign above it. It was that image that inspired the new owners of the franchise, that they would love to emulate that image at the front of this building. Another thing that's not really being discussed as part of this review because it's not signage related is that the front of the structure currently has been, at least the 120 side, the front has been completely covered. The windows that are historic, that are up on slightly on the clear story, have been covered. They've been painted over. There's metal siding covering all of that. We are planning to remove all of that, get it back to looking complementary to the space on the left with the red awning. You can see, on the right side, everything that you see that's high that looks just pure white, it's like a metal siding that's covering up clear story windows. So we plan to uncover that, put the windows back to a very attractive looking state, and then keep that awning high so it provides both the shade that we would like for the space, but also opens up the front of the building for view so that people can see how cute the building is attractive the building is and see out better. There's a couple of different benefits to it. But aesthetically, it was the owner's wish.
More comments? Any other? No? Do I hear a motion?
Well, let me say one thing. My feeling is that even though there is a precedent to the metal awning on Gurley Street, that I feel I should put a lot of importance on maintaining the design of the plaza area that was developed over 100 years ago. And so my feeling would be that they should be canvas awnings and not metal awnings.
Well, we'd have to come back then with new renderings because that's going to change the very nature of the sign because they can't mount well, I guess they could, but it would look strange. Mounting aluminum lettering on a canvas awning. This works because it's flat. Yes, so it would just, have to be printed on.
Yeah, the franchisee does request that this type of lettering be provided with the LED letter framed shape, just like you see in that image. And the flat awning allows us to provide that to the owner. And it's, it hinders back to a style more 40s, 50s, rather than obviously the early 1900s. But we feel that it's going to last longer. The other thing, structurally, we have already involved the structural engineer, and doing a flat awning such as this allows us to hang it from what's considered the floor space between the upper story and the ceiling space of the lower story. Whereas if we were to do another awning, we would have to kind of figure out how to structurally do that with limited points of pressure between where it's bearing and where it's supported.
Well, I do have one other comment. Personally, looking at the building with the signage on the right side and nothing on the left, it seems a little lopsided to me. I don't know if having the awnings, canvas awnings, would have lettering on both awnings.
Well, we're still limited to a certain square footage of lettering.
I understand that.
Mm-hmm. We had discussed whether the owner wanted to do maybe half of the name on the left awning and half on the right awning, but because of, again, structurally kind of how these would have to hang from the location between the two floors, it just felt a little bit more organic to have the signage over the space that you would want to attract people to. In essence, I understand what you're saying. Having the same awnings and having it be lopsided, I can see what you're saying there.
Well,
The main space of the donut shop, 95% of the time, is going to be primarily the right side.
I have another question for Kaylee.
Yes.
If that building was split in half, would signage be allowed on both?
Yes, it would. So the zoning code, depending on how far the building is set back, in this case it's 0. So the zoning code allows a half square foot of signage per every 1 lineal feet of store frontage. So if they were to split into, they'd basically have to split that signage allowance.
Okay, having said that, do I hear a motion?
Diane Travis, I move to approve HP 24-009.
Marion Settles, I second.
I'd just like to make the point again that this all deviates from the design theme that I feel is important to maintain on the Courthouse Plaza.
Okay, so do I have a vote? Those in favor? We have a 2 vote. Those opposed? We have a 4 vote. So sorry, we need to bring this back.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so item for study only, 201 and 221 South Cortez Street. So, of course, this is, now we deem it the old City Hall. On the right is a picture of Howie's Hall. So that was the original building on the site. It was built in the late 1870s. It hosted many things, mercantile. There was an ice skating rink in the bottom level at one point. It was like an opera house. The fire department, so it wore a lot of hats. It was demolished in 1959 to make way for the current City Hall. The design, the architects were Allen and Olson, who were, fairly notable architects in Arizona at that time. It's obviously a mid-century modern commercial building. And it was finished in 1962 and has been operable ever since. We actually still have a couple departments operating out of there. So here is an aerial map of the proposed project area. So you'll see it includes the 201 Cortez parcel, and then parcels to the south. Those will have to be combined. If, should this go forward, they'll have to be combined prior to any permits being submitted. And just a point of reference, it goes down to, if you're familiar with the site, where the fenced police parking is. That won't be taken away. The fenced area police parking would remain. Here is a rendering, if you're viewing it kind of from the southeast corner of the plaza. You're looking in at that main entrance. So it is 4 stories. Highest point is 55 feet to the top of the parapet at this, northwest corner. There will be 127 parking spaces on site, 2 retail spaces, 2 restaurants, and 109 guest rooms. So what you see is a materials palette. So they're doing smooth face limestone on the first level. And then on the second through fourth floors, they're proposing a mixture of brick veneer as well as ephes, which I learned is a synthetic stucco. The architectural details, like the molding, are to be a combination of ephes and cement, essentially. The windows will be metal frame. Wanted to point out there is a step back at the northwest corner of the second floor that continues to the fourth to accommodate an open air terrace. And there is articulation of the walls of the second to fourth floors. So that's like the tiering. So, of course, everyone received the staff report. I did a 7-page analysis against Chapter 8 guidelines. I picked 6 key elements within that: building size, otherwise known as massing and scale, siding, windows and doors, materials and details, demolition, and other miscellaneous elements. So you'll see I go through in the staff report and I grade it like meets criteria, partially meets criteria, and does not meet criteria. Because today is a study session only, we're just gonna, digest that input. We are also gonna have a presentation from the developer, Shane Shumway. So no recommended action, as this is a study session only. I am, of course, open for questions. Otherwise, we can jump to the applicant's presentation, and then, of course, any public comment.
Any comments?
If I could, city had a public meeting, and these renderings were out, and the developers were there. And so you got a pretty close view of what was going on in question. So I'm anxious today to hear what our public has to say, because I think we're doing our homework.
Yes, and thanks for bringing that up, Commissioner Settles. I forgot to mention there was an open house held on April 25th at the Old City Hall site. So it was, just an intro to the project, kind of an open flowing open house format. One other thing I forgot to mention is I did send the full submittal package down to the state for a courtesy analysis. I did that last month. I have not received the analysis. I'm hoping to have it for the voting session next month.
Do we want to have the developer's presentation before we do any questions?
Yes, we should do it before public
agree.
comment.
I agree.
So if you are ready at this point, we'll invite Shane up to do.
Commissioners, do you have any other questions at this point? All right, so then we'll have the presentation. If you'd state your name, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Kaylee, and thank you to the commission today. My name is Shane Shumway. I'm with Territory Holdings. Can you guys, is this loud enough? Is this okay? Okay, great. Okay. Great. So this is obviously a historic location. This has significance not just for the city of Prescott. Obviously, it's vital and a critical area for the city of Prescott, but it's also an important location for all of Arizona. Many of us have memories and experiences in this area, including my own family. The Courthouse Plaza, this is where my own grandparents came to finalize the adoption of my Aunt Anne, and it's where my uncle witnessed a jailbird escape from the sheriff's grasp through the plaza. So we have history at this location, and we love it just as you do. I want to just give you a brief overview about our company. Territory Holdings is a subsidiary of Whiting Brothers Investment Company. We are local to Arizona. Our headquarters are actually in the White Mountains of Arizona. If any of you have been over to the Show Low area, that's where we're headquartered. We've been family owned and operated and doing business in Arizona now for 5 generations. We currently employ over 80 individuals in Prescott. We have refurbished and revitalized 2 historic buildings in Prescott listed on the National Register of Historic Places. And we have contributed funds for the construction of a splash pad and community park in Prescott. And we also do our best to assist local charities and nonprofits with time and donations. I want to just highlight some work we've already done with the commission in prior projects, including the revitalization of the Sam Hill Warehouse and the restoration of the historic Trestle Bridge. Both of those projects required us to work with this commission to restore and revitalize what are really, truly amazing amenities here in Prescott. As part of that project as well, we built the splash pad and community park. This is a picture taken yesterday by Marcy with our team. People love the park. Sometimes there's as many as several hundred people there visiting each day, and we love it too. Let me get into to this project, and I want to just start with an overview of kind of the amenities and what the project consists of. Kaylee has already touched on this, but the project consists of 2 restaurants, one on the first level, a second restaurant on the second level. Both of those restaurants will have both indoor and outdoor space. That outdoor space is intended to look over the plaza. There's over 3,000 square feet of retail space along Goodwin, over 3,000 square feet of conference and event space. It will help attract those types of things to the downtown area. There's extensive outdoor patio space on both the first and second levels. There's 109 guest room hotel, and then total parking is 151 spots. 127 of those are on site. 24 of those are on the street. I want to thank individuals for coming to our open house that we held recently. At that open house, we asked for written comments from the community. In those responses, we received 45 responses, and I just wanted to highlight the comments that we received. Of those 45, 22 of the comments were positive, ranging from "I love it all" to "good job including parking." 7 of those comments were based on operations, like staffing ? I think asking, how are we going to staff the hotel and the project, and also how will you operate during various parades, and again, public parking. So parking was a consistent comment. 8 comments related to changing the type or color of the exterior materials. 8 comments related to the height or scale of the building. And then there were 8 anti-development comments, such as "horrible idea" or "why?" And I'll answer the why question later in the presentation. First, I want to just kind of review the historic design of what we were trying to accomplish. Obviously, we're trying to find a design that fits in with the historic downtown, that takes elements from surrounding buildings. So these are buildings either located on the plaza or close to. You'll see some of the elements in ours, the arched windows at the post office, the canvas awnings used, the keystone and brick details of the St. Michael and things like that. So Kaylee touched on this, but I'll reiterate it. The materials on the facade are a mix of stone. So that limestone that you see is actually along Goodwin and Cortez, the full height of both the first and second levels. Then there's also a mix of brick and ephes. We're using traditional details on this, such as arched windows. You'll see that along Goodwin and Cortez. The bulkhead panels, the keystone details over some of the windows, the traditional cornice molding and parapet, and then soldier coursing of brick above windows. We're working to update this rendering to make sure it shows better just the traditional double hung style of windows and the vertical orientation. And then the siding of the building, it's not set back, but it comes to the property line along Cortez and Goodwin. This is just a closer look at the materials. This was presented to you earlier today, and happy to go through that in more detail later if there are questions on it. This is a fuller just a fuller scale of the elevation along Cortez, and this is along the alleyway, so opposite from Cortez. So again, this is Cortez. You can see here on this elevation along Cortez the entrance to the parking. So we will be digging down some to accommodate what is structured parking. Structured parking does cause a significant cost increase to the project, but because we're achieving the accommodation of parking on here, that's how we're doing it, is through the structured parking. I want to just talk briefly about the relationship between height, parking, and amenities. As I mentioned earlier in the community open house, we did receive comments on height. And so maybe I can kind of describe the why between the height of the building. These are the heights of surrounding buildings in downtown. The post office, which is just across the street from this location, is 49 feet to the top of parapet, 60 feet to the top of mechanical. The courthouse is 67 feet. The library is 51. Police Department 45, Knights of Pythias 54, the downtown parking garage 50, and then our project would be 55 at the corner of Goodwin and Cortez, 48 at the corner of Goodwin and the alleyway. So after the open house, we went back to our design team and said, look, we need to try to start showing this better in relationship to surrounding buildings. We are still developing these drawings. And so this is what I could have in time for just this meeting. We're still developing this better. But the next 3 slides are just intended to show its relationship to the surrounding buildings. This one, as part of the development, we do have to do our best to try to maintain the oak tree that's there. So you'll see that on our slides. That's why that tree is there. So again, this just shows the height. Again, 55 at Goodwin and Cortez, 48 at the alleyway. There is a relationship between height and parking in the development, and it's a trade-off. And although there's 0 parking required as part of the code, as part of the overlay code that is the historic downtown, so there's 0 required parking. However, we're providing parking. So we're providing 127 spots, and then that total of 151. And for us, it's an important consideration to keep the parking for operations and our intent to ensure that we're not a burden to adjacent properties parking-wise. So why are we at the current height? So although current code requires no parking, we have added structural parking to the development. This causes a need for taller floor-to-ceiling heights on the first level. And again, we've done this to minimize the burden on adjacent properties. Another consideration on height is, although this is maybe less important to the commission, it is an important consideration to us, which is the need to attract retailers and restaurant operators to this space, and floor heights do matter to them, although principally what's driving it is the parking. I did want to note that other design submittals contemplated as many as 7 stories. Our original submittal was 6 stories, and based on feedback, we've gotten it down to 4 stories. At this point, I think it is important for all to be aware that removing the structured parking would result in a much different project in terms of, just amenities that are part of the project, and also just accommodating parking for it. This is the first level parking layout. You enter on Cortez and go underneath the building, and you can see that entrance there. This shows the retail and then the wraparound restaurant as well along Goodwin. This is second level parking. So this is on that structured parking on the alleyway. You would enter this parking level, and then this would be open air parking at this level. Wanted to just touch on the why of the development and the reasons. Obviously, we would have our own reasons to do it, but important reasons why the city would do this development. First is just adding to the importance of Prescott's downtown and continuing to maintain it as a center for community gatherings and economic activity. It would add to the tax base, which is vital to a growing community so it can support its most critical people and its infrastructure. It will attract additional people to the downtown area, which is important for other businesses to support local businesses, add to the vibrancy and safety of the area. Downtowns thrive when they feel safe and when they feel vibrant. It creates a pedestrian-friendly environment activated through retail space, restaurant space, and conferences. And also it fits with the surrounding and historic setting. So with that in mind, we're here. I'm here to do our very best to listen to your feedback, to try to make note of it and see and do the best we possibly can in response to that feedback. I'd ask maybe for just a couple of considerations in that feedback, which is sometimes in a development like this, there's conflicting feedback where, there is one person wants this and another person wants something different. And oftentimes we can't do both because they conflict. And just the second thing is that oftentimes a project does require trade-offs. And in this one, that is likely parking is what we're dealing with, is the trade-off between parking and height of the building. But with that in mind, I'm excited to hear your comments. I love the project. I think our design team has done a really great job in coming up with something that fits with the historic downtown and that will be a truly amazing place for gatherings and community events and for people to stay as well. So with that, I'll take questions or also sit down if you're ready for me to sit down.
I have a couple of questions. Mike Mirko, Chair. Are you going to have elevators in this building?
Yes.
We've had a similar circumstance where the mechanical end of the elevators, which are on top of the building, actually exceeded height requirements. Are we going to see those mechanicals pop up here and not have that slick roof line that you have right now?
So it will be, there's two types of elevators. Ours will be a traction elevator, which means that you don't need a mechanical system that protrudes higher. And so because it's a traction elevator, we won't have that issue. We are using the parapets of the building to help screen other equipment that's up there. But our hope is that because of the parapet, it's screened.
Is there a hotel chain that is going into this or taking over?
So we are waiting for just formal approval. We haven't made that decision yet. We're getting further down the road.
Well, my question would be, most of these hotels do require parking. And if that's the case, and the hotel is dictating how much parking you're going to have, which is dictating how high that building is, I see some problems there. Anybody else see that? Any other questions for this gentleman?
I just have a couple. I do have some concerns also with the height. But on the picture there, you have balconies. We don't have balconies here really in Prescott, especially with the glass in the front. I like the windows. You've incorporated them pretty well with the other surrounding buildings. The small balconies, we've got the glass fronts on those. Those don't go anywhere really around here, as does the stucco. I know there are some buildings, I think you guys did the Hilton Gardens Hotel, which is quite similar with the brick and the stucco. The overhangs we just shot down for the donut shop are quite similar to what you have over the front for the metal awnings, and I believe it looks like over maybe the parking area also. I don't know if those can be changed or whatnot. Metal frames on the windows and the doors, I don't believe, are those acceptable, or do we have to lean towards more of the wood
No, yeah, so these are great points. I love that you brought up the balconies and the glass, and of course that's in the staff report, my analysis of those materials. Actually, metal is acceptable. There's like a little section, it says steel, but so long as the finish is compatible, and we talked about, not doing like a shiny metallic, it is acceptable and probably preferable for a commercial building as far as weathering goes.
Those are some of my concerns.
Yeah, thank you. I think we can look to address the glass finishes on the balconies. And I can talk with our design team about the awnings and what we can do there.
Kaylee, this is Rob Johnson. So in your staff report, you identified a lot of what is being discussed right now. Is that staff report ever reviewed with the individuals that are requesting to put the building up?
Yes.
Your recommendations and comments that we've all been privileged to see?
Absolutely. We've done, a preliminary review and provided feedback to the developer, and they received the staff report as well. And the staff report is also published, so that the public can review it.
Any others? So maybe,
Mr. McCarver. Again, not to beat a dead horse, but the emphasis, it's a beautiful building. The emphasis, in my opinion, is maintaining the design theme of the downtown area, maintaining the integrity of the Courthouse Plaza region. And so lots of guidelines in our historic guidelines manual that differ from what this rendering shows. One additional comment from the master plan, there's a comments that no uses should be permitted that allow or encourage automobiles to traverse the property or cross the public sidewalk. And there is an entrance to the garage on the Cortez side of the building. Now, my feeling was that in our master plan, they suggest that you shouldn't traverse in areas that are facing the plaza itself. And this is really down the street a little bit. But that would be, I would get what's your opinion about that?
Yeah, correct. The focus is on, the streets essentially flanking the plaza. So I'm not as concerned about the Cortez entrance, particularly because there is a driveway there right now for the city. We have a drive-through service for utility billing. So it wouldn't impact the pedestrian experience as much as, if there were to be an entrance proposed on the north elevation, I'd say absolutely not. But definitely a good point to bring up and, to contemplate.
Diane Travis, good morning. I'd like to address the ephes on the building. There seems to be quite a bit. And the guidelines say that stucco should be an accent. An accent feature gives a distinctive visual emphasis to something. What is this ephes giving accent to? It just seems like there's quite a bit. And I understand ephes would be cost savings over brick or something, but is there any way to scale down the ephes?
Yeah, thank you for that comment. So I can take your comment and we can do our best to see what we can to accommodate it. I think maybe your preference is just more brick, right? You prefer to just see more brick in place of the in place of the EFS.
I like the design of the building, but for the historic purposes, yes, I think we'd probably need to see more brick or something.
Yeah, so we can look at that. In other projects that we've done, not in Prescott, but in other places, typically the guidelines will give us, like, we'll use this % of primary materials and this % of secondary materials, and then stucco or EFS is considered a secondary material. Here, it was, it's not this, like, use this % and use this %. It's a bit more vague. And so let me just take your feedback and see what we can do.
Any others? So maybe we turn this over to the public?
Yes.
Sound good? Thank you, sir.
We have 8 public speaker requests, and just a reminder to please keep speaking time to 3 minutes. And first is Edward, is it Bowie? Thank you.
Well, I'm pleased to be able to speak first. I think this is a terrific project. My background is in Chicago, in a historic district called the Uptown Community. We have 60,000 people there. I oversaw the redevelopment of that community, which was a ghetto 25 years or 30 years ago. I have 3 properties on the National Register, just so I have a historic perspective. I am not afraid of new materials. I'm not afraid of compatibility with the community. The height seems quite adequate. The idea of tourism and is a prominent feature of Prescott, especially in the downtown area. Many of the Whiskey Row street or properties are very quiet. The citizens of Prescott don't really go down there that much. Most of the activity is tourist, and the hotels are very, very positive for bringing people into the community and using our retail facilities. They buy things, they drink things, they eat things. So it's all good for the community, and this is a terrific idea for that particular location. It doesn't have high traffic, foot traffic volume at all, probably less than what the City Hall had. And I'm glad to see that the city chose a new site for the City Hall. I didn't like the building that was there. I think this is a great addition to Prescott. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
John Zishan.
Good morning. I'm also very positive about this structure. I like the look, the feel. I've read some of the comments and looked at the feedback that had been online from the previous meeting, and it strikes me that most of what the feedback is for cosmetics, which is understandable. I like the new elevations, that they're lower, and the facade of the building generally. A couple comments on that. And this is really getting down to details, but this is mostly for the architects that are redesigning or that are currently designing a final view of the building. The window mullions, for instance, they look a little bit too contemporary compared to other buildings in the areas. Typically, the center mullions are a little bit wider, that type of thing. As far as the materials being, whether they're wood or metal, metal right now can be fabricated to be very, very similar to wood. In fact, go into the county building here, or I should say into the courthouse, and you can actually see there's a metal framework around the door as you go into the courtroom. Few people know that that's metal because it looks so much like wood. And so for appearance sake, for cosmetic sake, that certainly makes sense to me. I agree with the issue about the railings in front. They're way too contemporary with the glass. Something could be done more consistently with the style of buildings in the area. The colors, I think, are really good. There may be some consideration of more of the reddish brown in some of the accent colors, again, consistent with the other buildings in the area and the examples that are given in the presentation materials. And I really like the idea of brick. I don't know how much of an impact it would be on brick as opposed to a pressed concrete type of siding or material that's similar to brick. But I like, the brick color also. As far as some of the other issues, the parking lot. One question is the parking going to be segregated by use, whether it's going to be for the customers or the tenants of the building as opposed to customers coming in to use it, as opposed to just general use? Are people going to just look for some place to park? This is nice and convenient. I'll park in this area and then go downtown to, look at other buildings. How is that accommodated? Will that be enforced? Is that an issue? I'm not certain, but I have been in other places where they're now towing cars if you're using their parking lot for an adjacent building, and it's kind of an uncomfortable situation. The one other thing, which is types of retail that are going in. Will there be any limitation to what exactly can the ownership of those buildings? Are they going to be franchise type operations? Are we going to have a Kentucky Fried Chicken right off of City Hall, that type of thing?
Yep.
And so...
Sorry to interrupt you, about 30 seconds left.
Okay. And then finally, the last thing that, and this may seem really out there, but is there any thought or consideration, and I'll probably get laughter on that, but any thought or consideration on whether or not you would allow sometime over the next 10, 20, 30 years to allow electronic vehicle landing on the roof for commuters that may be coming in from the airport right here, flying in from, to avoid traffic or anything else that might be necessary in the future? It's kind of out there, but it is something to take into account, and it is something that's happening now and might be needed to be considered. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We received a couple more, so we have a total of 10. Jerry Cruz.
Good morning. Jerry Cruz. I live here in Prescott, starting my 5th year here. I'm glad that everybody's being very positive. I've been to the City Hall, the old City Hall, and paid my water bill. This is not a salvageable building. Nothing can be done to save that, and frankly, it's not that nice. The two things I noticed were the tree on Courthouse and the statue celebrating 100 years of rodeo. The rest is demolishing. My thought is, whatever your thought was for this corner is there in this design. You've got the retail, you've got restaurants, hopefully promoting local restaurateurs to come in, and retailers. It's adding parking, it's not taking away. And I'd be interested in what the percentages of DUIs that go on in this town from people that are traveling from our Whiskey Row to their hotels. So this puts them on the street, takes them out of their cars, and brings more people to the side of the courthouse I believe is underserved. That's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a comment for the folks. Remember, this is a Historic Preservation Commission. Our concerns aren't mainly parking. It's the building, how it looks, how it's presented to the public coming into our community. So keep that in mind with your comments. Thanks.
Tony Hamer.
Tony Hamer, 801 Downer Trail. This has been a really interesting discussion today. It's one we need more of, and I applaud you for having the open house. I grew up in a Victorian row house. So as I look at Prescott, it's about the same period as I grew up in facilities. I grew up in a tourism town. It was 25 miles east of London, and Londoners came down on boats in order to visit our town because it was considered very attractive. And that happened from 1800 to 1940s. And then tourism disappeared. Everybody went on cheap holidays to Europe instead. And Gravesend really suffered because of that. It saw an economic decline, and that went on in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, where the downtown area was boarded up. Great stores, which had beautiful goods and services, were boarded up, and it became a tragedy. Part of that was our Prime Minister, Harold Wilson, and his socialist policies, but Gravesend's been revitalized. It was revitalized by the Indian and Pakistani communities that saw an opportunity to come in. So we go through economic cycles in terms of cities. What I wanted to say today was that we're at a crossroads here in Prescott, and it's a serious one. We have no money. We know that. We're going out for tax increases to do various things. We need to preserve our tourism business, and that's a very important facet which you address. We need a quality of life for citizens. They don't come downtown any longer. And I think there's a concern in terms of focus and function in terms of what we're doing downtown versus taste. Whether the right shade of brick is being used, etc., is important to some people, but we've bigger problems than that. We need a view of the future of downtown. It's been 10 years since we've had a preservation plan, and I understand one is underway at this point. Hopefully that will be much more useful than the existing one. We need to provide helpful guidelines to investors coming into our community. And we need to take the whole square and the area around the square and start to illustrate what we think it should look like in 10 years. Now, the we here isn't the commission, the we is the community. So a preservation plan for downtown is long overdue. We look forward to the new one coming out. And we need to invite investors to join us here in making the future of Prescott.
Your time's almost up.
We need to, won't be but 2 minutes. We need to invite investors to join us and add to our tax base, because that's what we're going to be hurting on in the next few years here. We have no community endorsed plan. And that's what we need to do. We have lack of investment from public and private.
We need to have comments.
We need you to wrap this up,
Lack of visionary leadership. Finally, one last point. We have younger generations who need to be involved. We're too old to be making these decisions. Thanks.
Jennifer Hendricks.
Need my readers. Hello. My name is Jennifer Hendricks, and I appreciate this opportunity to speak today about the proposed City Hall redevelopment, and I'm probably going to disagree with many of the comments made here today. One of the things that we all love about Prescott is how historic it is. So it's unfortunate that there is no discussion about adaptive reuse of the architecturally significant mid-century building as part of the project. In fact, I was just in the elevator with a gentleman who had no idea when I told him I was here to bring recognition to the architects. So today, for the public record, I'd like to tell you about them and their notable contributions in Arizona. The current building was designed by the architectural firm of Allen and Olson. George Allen and Hugo Olson were both pilots in World War II and settled in Phoenix in the 1950s. They had 2 offices, one here in Prescott and one in Phoenix on celebrated Architects Row with the likes of Ralph Haver and Al Beadle. Hugo Olson actually studied under Ralph Haver at one time. You might be familiar with some of their buildings and developments, such as Phoenix Park Central, Prescott High School, and the American Institute of Architects award-winning Frericks House. They also are often attributed as the architects of the Chapel of the Holy Cross in Sedona, which unfortunately can't be confirmed. But why this is particularly important to me is Allen and Olson designed my home here in Prescott, just a mile away on Country Club Drive. So now let me tell you about the actual building. The Prescott City Hall was constructed in 1962 as the community needed to consolidate scattered multiple municipal offices. Construction included smooth white walls, tall glazing, natural stone retaining walls, which we all see, and a flat roof. The ultra-modern architectural character reflected the desired modern setting for city offices. Upper exterior walls appear to float visually above the lower earthbound stone walls. An outreaching breezeway structure, that big white thing that you see out front, visually anchored the composition to the street. The contemporary building was somewhat controversial at the time, although Prescott architect William Otwell noted that it is a good representation of its era, and that there was no looking back in time.
30 seconds.
Dignitaries included Senator Barry Goldwater was there, Arizona's Supreme Court justices. So why should the city consider adapting the current City Hall building? Historic buildings are a symbol and reminder of the past, something I would argue Prescott takes pride in. There are many national examples of adapting mid-century buildings into modern shops and restaurants. Could you imagine having a drink on a restaurant patio above those beautiful existing stone walls encircling the building? It certainly would be a destination. So please consider repurposing the City Hall building and retaining that significant architecture in the redevelopment instead of trying to recreate something historic when we have something historic here already. I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you.
Dave Humphrey.
Hi. I'm not going to tell you anything about myself. I see this as a step towards big buildings. You're opening Pandora's box by letting it says 4 stories, but it looks like 5 to me. I would suggest lopping off a story to get it down to allowable height. Make sure about the HVAC, the height of the HVAC system, because the walls up there will have to exceed that. I don't know how far back it'll be set, but you got to worry about that. There won't be enough parking spaces, even with 125 space interior. Not when you got some 140 rooms, I think, and conference room. They didn't say how many seats. Shops, you're going to have a couple of 100 cars there. Street traffic, I guess that's not your concern. Canvas awnings, I'm going to address that for a second. I'm a mechanical engineer. Okay, I said something. They're similar to sails on a boat. You don't want a solid sail against hard winds. The city doesn't know this, but the burst speed of the high design burst speed for wind here is 103 miles an hour. That's like a 3-second burst. If that comes in under a steel awning, it is very likely going to lift it up and fly it off, and that's going to kill people. Canvas awnings don't do that, so keep that in mind. And that's all I really have to say. I don't know why developers keep wanting to violate codes and standards, and the rules and your expectations, and trying to push and push and push on you guys, when all they got to do is stay within the framework and much more easily get a building passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Darlene Losing.
Hello. My name's Darlene. I'm pretty new to the Prescott area. I just moved here about 6 months ago. From Arizona, I've lived all over, up north, down south. We settled here for a couple reasons. The lifestyle, the historical preservation of downtown is what really drew us. I hear a lot about how people don't go downtown. We're downtown all the time. We love it downtown. I used to live in Chino Valley years ago, and it seemed that there were maybe more people then, but there's older people here. It's become more of a retirement community. But I do worry about commercial such as this coming in and it being so commercialized with all these people that when you want to go down, get a cup of coffee at a restaurant, you're not going to get a seat. Or, you're going to have more traffic, more foot traffic. So I am a little bit concerned about it. I do understand that things change and that you have to kind of upgrade and rebuild and things like that. I do agree with what this lady had spoken about preserving the building as it is or adding on to it, changing it. I think there's a historical group here, isn't there, that does preservation for the whole downtown, or is this part of that group perhaps? I'm not real sure about all that. But I just feel that maybe we should take a look at the existing building and adding on to it, maybe incorporating a lot what they have. I think what they have here looks nice. I think it's too tall. I think some of the homes up in the hills are going to be looking down on the top of a building instead of, it sticks up higher to me than, I know they showed examples there. But I think that the solution would be maybe some compromising overall. We do need tourism, we do need shops and restaurants, but it's only 2 restaurants. I mean, when you look at the size of the building, there's not a lot of retail space and there's 2 restaurants. One will probably belong to the hotel itself. So, and there isn't, as some of the other people pointed out, the parking, who's it all designated for? So there's a lot of questions for me personally. I think scaling it back would be something that would be reasonable. And I think that most other people already brought up a lot of points as far as the architectural. I would like to see something more, I mean, it looks modern, a little too modern for downtown. And I would like to see that changed, and I would like to see that they would try to preserve what is already there, the old City Hall building. I heard it's a mess, but, they rebuilt other places and kept some of that integrity intact. So, all right. Thank you.
Jeff Stecker.
Hi, I'm Jeff Stecker. I'm a resident. I first came to Prescott in 2018 to the Mile High Roof Fest. My nephew was the band, fell in love with this place that day, and so we moved here. I like the historicness of this town, and it's just a beautiful place. So before I got here, I wanted to look up what the Preservation Committee has done, and it's to preserve the unique qualities and distinctive historic characteristics of Prescott. And just my opinion, this particular usage of the space, for me, it's my eye, doesn't fit to that. So those are my concerns, that it's, as somebody said earlier, too contemporary. As I said, we got here for my nephew's band, and I remember going first to Scottsdale in 1981. I loved that place too. And I've been to Scottsdale recently, and I can't even find Old Town. I mean, it's huge, and it's not what I want to see for here for Prescott. So also, I think as a resident, we do go downtown a lot. I go to the Elks Theater very, very often. It's always filled. It's always with residents. And last Saturday night, there was a woman that was singing. I don't know if anybody had seen her. She did Gold Rush Women, I think it was. One of them was Joni Mitchell, and it reminded me, and it said, they paid Paradise, put up a parking lot with a pink hotel, a boutique, and a swinging hotspot. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? They paid Paradise, put up a parking lot. Thank you.
Rex Malden.
Hello, my name is Rex. Oops. My name is Rex Malden. I live in Prescott. So I'm going to give a little slightly different perspective on this. My background is drafting. I'm the one that architects and engineers turn to for the D-size drawings. I'm sure you've seen plenty of. My background has been electrical lighting and mechanical. Mechanical being your water delivery system, air conditioning units, heaters, and so forth. I've also done volunteer work for the city for the your water lines and the sewer drawings for improvements of the system in the past. I was a planner assistant for the Kokopanian tribe in Yuma. I've gotten around seeing buildings come and go. One question, such as you point out to remind us, is historical preservation. I'm wondering if the building that's there now, can it be repurposed? So it looks the same, but is used in a different way. I'm curious about that. What I look at is this building is what it takes to power it. The septic system, is it up to snuff? Is it, the water is always an issue about water, but then there's the delivery. Are the pipes in the city adequate to do something like this? One thing that stands out in my mind with this project is the restaurants. As a drafter, I have seen restaurants come and go. I've had to draft the changes, the remodel, and so forth. Of this project, it makes me a little nervous about the restaurant because it might work for a little while and then it goes away and then it has to be remodeled. But I see the need for parking spaces, the hotel situation, certainly a draw. So I just thought I'd throw that out as far as, from my point of view, is looking at the infrastructure and just to keep that in mind. So that's just my 2 cents. Thanks.
We received another comment, so we have 2 left. Matthew Fish.
Good morning. Thank you for letting me have a few moments of your time. I own Prescott Commercial Real Estate. Our office is downtown on Courthouse, just down the street. We have the opportunity to sell and lease so many of the different spaces downtown. We interact with the business owners, we interact with the consumers, and all the people that celebrate downtown. The big economic engine of downtown is hospitality, travel, and tourism. It's the ability to come and celebrate these old buildings, the history, the topography, the weather, all the things that make Prescott great. And to me, this project is exactly what downtown's all about. It celebrates hospitality, travel, tourism, retail, and a great food service option. One of the biggest downfalls of downtown, as we all know, is parking. When you're looking at a commercial project, if you can't park it, you can't use it. A building is only as good as its parking. I would celebrate another floor on any building to be able to pull a bunch of the vehicles off the street. We know that downtown was built in the horse and buggy days, and that's not the case anymore as we all transverse around the square. We have to encroach upon the turning lanes because the long pickup trucks are poking out of all the retail spaces around the square, and they're there to enjoy it, and we're glad they're there. But to be able to pull 100+ vehicles off of the streets downtown and park them under this project, I think is a very good use of the building, and I would encourage you to consider the height to pull the vehicles off of the streets downtown. Anyway, I love the project. I've heard all over in the community how excited people are about it. I've met with several of the architects in town and just heard some of their feedback. It's a great project. We're lucky to have it. So thankful that this developer is willing to spend hard-earned dollars in our community, and hope you guys have a great weekend.
Great. Thank you.
Final speaker, Dennis Levine.
Good morning. Excuse me. Good morning. I am a 7-year transplant here, and I will share with you when I first came to Prescott, coming down the highway, seeing Costco and all the big buildings, I'm going, oh my God, I made a mistake. This is not really where I want to be because I left it in California. Then I came down Sheldon and Gurley, and I looked at downtown and I said, I'm home. I've always been a small town guy living in a big town, and it just wasn't me. I have 25 years experience in the design industry, and I understand where this gentleman is coming from. He's got to fill it, his space, with as much possible revenue as he can. My only concern, sir, is that the perspective of this building is massive. It's massive. It's going to be the key focal point of everyone coming into our town. And that's not what it's all about. It's Whiskey Row. And I just think the building is just, we need something, yes. Whether we need this in this size, I question. I also question the amount of parking space that's available. If you have a conference and you have 120 rooms and you have a conference center and you have a restaurant, what's going to happen when you have a conference center with 300 people coming in? Is it going to be that large? I don't know.
It's 3,000 square feet.
You get 3,000 square feet. What if you have a conference that's going to come in and you've got 200 people? There goes your parking. Where are they going to park? Those are just my questions. Thank you for listening, and I hope I hadn't offended you. Good.
Oh.
Okay, we have one more. Marcy Hurlbert.
Hi, I'm Marcy Hurlbert. I live here in Prescott. My family moved here about 50 years ago. This is the kind of development that we need, urban feel rather than something that's happening on the periphery of the town. The development has 3,000 square feet. Typically, I've 25 years experience in hospitality. Typically for 3,000 square feet, you're going to get some conferences, and those typically happen during the day, Monday through Friday. I just wanted to give that perspective. It's typically not an evening during the week thing. Thank you.
That it?
No further comments.
Okay, with that, Kaylee, you have anything to add to?
No, unless you have, questions for me.
Anybody with questions for either the developer or Kaylee? No, I guess not. Folks, thank you for your comments. We appreciate them. We will take them to heart. And thank the developer for his presentation.
So I just want to clarify the next meeting will be the second Friday of June, and that will be the voting session. Bear with me here while I confirm that date. June 14th, same time and place. And again, public input will be taken. And that's all I have.
Any other staff updates?
Yes. Yes, it will be a voting session.
Any other staff updates? Current events?
No staff updates.
Nothing.
Anything new on the conference?
It's the same. So June 25th through the 28th, and hope you all can attend. I actually need to register you all, so I'm going to confirm with you that you all can make it. So.
Okay, with nothing else to add, I will adjourn this May 10th meeting of the Prescott Preservation Commission.